Hello, and welcome to the Daily Forex Report for June 28th. We're looking at the US-Japanese yen pair. This pair closed down during this last session. Pretty much has been moving sideways overall. Look for this pair to potentially go as high as 80.10, possibly as low as 78.86. Look for some resistance around 79.86 and look for some support around 79.15. Now, the Euro-USD pair, it closed down during this last session. Look for it. It did have a very large range, however. Look for it to potentially go as high as 125.72, possibly as low as 123.21. Look for some resistance around 125.25, and look for some support around 124.05. Now, the pound-US dollar pair closed lower. We are looking for it, however, to potentially go as high as 156.72, possibly as low as 153.83. Look for some resistance around 15600, and look for some support around 154.75. Now, the US Swiss, it's moved to the upside as well, had a very large range day, closed higher. Look for it to potentially go as high as 0.9721, possibly as low as 0.9553. Look for some resistance around 0.9677 and look for some support around 0.9588. Now, as far as news announcements go, we do have a few news announcements during tomorrow's session. At 8:30 a.m. Eastern, we have the Canadian Gross Domestic Product being released for the year, for April, annualized though. Consensus on that one is that it has moved from 1.6% up to 1.8%. Then at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, we have the U.S. Personal Consumption's Expenditure Report being released for May. Consensus on that one is that it has dropped from 1.9% down to 1.8%. Then a little bit later in the day at 9:55 a.m. Eastern, we have the U.S. University of Michigan's confidence for June being released. That report's showing potential for a hold at 74.1. So that'll be interesting to see if it does in fact come out exactly at that number. Okay, now what am I looking for during this next session? Well, yesterday we talked about the trend line here. It was broken. It was broken by a decent amount as well. Came down about 33 pips. So let's back out a little ways. I know we've been looking at kind of the shorter time frames overall, but let's take a look at the US-Japanese yen pair and what's been going on. You can see we're actually at close to a trend line here. Excuse me. Here on this one, looks like it's about to break through it. So that'll be, keep an eye on that from a long-term perspective. And this is the Euro USD has pulled back significantly, but now is retracing down. If we get a break below this low, I think we're going to head on down probably fairly quick down to the 1-2000 mark. So keep an eye on the euro. That's more of a long-term perspective. Now the pound has somewhat of a head and shoulders formation that it's created over the last little bit. So look for a potential break of this trend line to the downside and for it to head lower, probably down to right about there. Okay, now the US Swiss, this pair continues, has moved to the upside pretty much all week. Still looking for it to do that. The fact that we had a strong pullback today and then it continued higher, I do anticipate it continuing higher through the rest of tomorrow's session. Okay, well, let's take a look at the Euro USD from a let's drop down to the shorter time frames and take a look at what has occurred over this last session. You can see it spiked up and then moved lower. Interestingly enough, we had a little bit of a bump here when we had got the news for the U.S. that healthcare had stayed that the bill was supported by the Supreme Court. But then it just came on back down and tracked kind of where it was towards until the very end of the day, and it moved up. But overall, very tight so far during this new session. So definitely look for a breakout there over the next little bit. You could probably tag the lows here if you wanted to, and just look for a breakout to the downside. I do believe we'll see it push lower. Well, I hope all that helps, and until next time, this is Jason Fielder. Good trading.